Hello, this is Ascension Lab, and I want to try making a tier list for Slay the Spire 2 beta patch 102. I'm on untapped.gg right now, and some of the cards have different descriptions from what they currently have in the beta patch. For example, Blade of Ink had a complete rework to throw Inky Shivs, which weakens, and here, whenever you play an attack, gain 3 strength. So there will be some discrepancies between the live beta patch and what's on this website. However, I'll make those distinctions clear throughout the video. So it's in alphabetical order. I was considering sorting by card type, but I think it's fine. So I have untapped.gg and their card descriptions open here, and then on my other tab I have a tier list open that's ordered in the same way. So let's start. Abrasive. It's Sly, so it's pretty much free to play most of the time. You gain a dexterity and you get 6 thorns. So generally speaking, if you get this, you're getting it at the end of Act 1 or Act 2. And it just does a lot of really good work against some of the elites that hit a lot of times, like the B elite in Act 2. And it's generally pretty easy to play due to the cards you should probably be taking on this character most of the time, such as Prepared and Acrobatics. I never find myself struggling to play it. It also gives dexterity, which is an insanely good stat. It makes it so you just take objectively less damage. Just on the merit of being a Sly power card, I am comfortable putting it in Amazing. There are probably other rare cards that I would take over it, but not very many. It's easily one of the best cards in the kit. And for context, I'm just labeling this tier list as the best, amazing, great, good, average, meh. And then actually, F is meh, I'm going to say bad. So probably cards you just don't want to take. While S is like, there's not going to be that many cards in S, to be honest. They're going to be like the very best cards in the kit. They should almost always just click when they come up. Amazing, it means you're pretty much always happy to have them in your deck, but there are circumstances where there are other cards that are better, and it's almost a non-circumstantial great card. Like it'll be pretty much good in every deck. Great means that you're usually happy to find them. Maybe it becomes a bit more niche for its use cases, but it's still just generally speaking great. For good, these will probably be more synergy-based cards, and they aren't always a take, but they're worth considering. Average are usually cards that you might take in the early game just to survive Act 1, or they're just not that good in general. They're weak. Meh means you're not happy to take it at all. Like you want to avoid it, and bad means you almost never want to take it. It's better to just they're just a curse in your deck basically, or maybe even worse than that. Okay, so now that I have that out of the way, abrasive in A tier makes sense to me. Uh, the upgraded version of it is a decently sized upgrade. You get 2 more thorns, which can do a lot of damage. Accelerant is interesting. So I think upgrading it is really good because it becomes twice as good, but also it's a win more card in my opinion. If you already have so much poison application that you need to play Accelerant, then you almost don't need it. It feels like a win more card a lot of the time. There are instances where it can pretty much win you the run though. Like for example, if you have a nice Corrosive Wave build going and you play Accelerant, then you're just going to kill a boss very quickly. It's definitely a great Act 3 card. I usually always take it if I have decent poison plus Act 3, but it feels awkward to play early game if you're only having like 1 or 2 poison cards like a Snakebite. So I'm going to put that in good for now. I might end up shuffling things at the very end, but I think for now good makes sense. And namely because I just find it's not useful until you actually have a good poison engine already set up. Next is accuracy. Shivs deals 6 additional damage. It's obviously a very synergistic card, and can be it can make shivs just very strong in general. It only costs 1 energy to play. The upgrade gives 2 more damage on each shiv, which is really big if you're playing a lot of shivs. I think that in general, shivs are just pretty strong right now, especially with the Blade of Ink rework. And I find myself taking accuracy a lot. If I even have just one shiv card already in my deck, I usually end up taking it. And it's just, for 1 energy, you get so much damage and value out of it, if you really think about it. So I'm also going to put this in good because you'll find it sometimes and there's just no use case for it if you have no shivs in your deck. But if you are building towards shivs, it gives you a pretty clear way to win the run, and you can build around it pretty well. Acrobatics. Okay, well, I would say not only is it the best card in the Silence deck, it might be the best card in the game, period. It's a common, you draw 3 and discard 1 for 1 cost. That is just ridiculous. And it was already extremely strong in Slay the Spire 1, but with Slay the Spire 2, with the addition of the Sly cards, it's just insane. I pretty much take it on every single chance I can. It's very rare that I pass up an Acrobatics. I pretty much just add as many as I can. There are some instances where it can get a bit awkward when you don't have any energy generation at all in your deck, because oftentimes you can sometimes just play 3 Acrobatics in your turn and not find any good Sly cards, and then you end your turn without even blocking. But that's pretty rare. It's so easy to set your deck up around Acrobatics. It's kind of the bread and butter of most builds. I always have at least 1 or 2 in my silent runs, so not much more to be said about Acrobatics. It's extremely good. I would say the best card in the entire kit. And upgraded, I usually don't end up upgrading. It just draws 1 additional card. I think there are other things that I prioritize upgrading. I will do it sometimes in Act 3 when I find other cards. When I already have most of my cards that I want upgraded already upgraded, you'll find me upgrading Acrobatics, but it's usually fine to just keep in its base form. Adrenaline is another card where it's just overpowered. There's no downside. I can't really think of any downsides to ever taking an Adrenaline. It just gives 2 energy and draws 2 cards for 0 cost. It's a great target for cloning. It's so good on like dead hands if you draw into it because you can pretty much completely revive your turn. There's just no downside to ever taking this. You're always going to click an Adrenaline if you see it. It's just pure upside. And it's almost one of the sole cards in the game that you always want to take. And there's no downside, other than maybe some where you don't want to play too many cards, like the doorway in the end of. But even then, you're still going energy neutral. So pretty much always just click Adrenaline if you see it. After Image is interesting. So upgrading it makes it innate, and that's pretty nice usually. The thing is with the Silent, or at least the way I've been playing it, After Image gets a lot of value for me because you can consistently play it every turn or every combat if it's innate. And I'm generally speaking playing a lot of cards per turn on the Silence, so I end up getting a lot of block and value out of this. And there are relics that will give you block by playing skills, but you can't really rely on just finding specific relics in your run. So therefore, I think After Image is one of the best block engines on the Silent. And I usually end up taking it. It's obviously really good with shivs. For some of the poison builds, it's not as good because they're higher costs. For example, Snakebite costs 2. You're only getting 1 block for playing a Snakebite, and if you're hard on energy, it's not great. With the Sly build, you're playing a lot of cards because you're not only playing, for example, Acrobatics or Prepared, you're also discarding a Sly card, and that gives another stack of that. So I think After Image goes really well into almost all deck archetypes for the Silent, and therefore I'm going to put it in Amazing. I think it's just a great card all around. Next we have Anticipate. So I rarely find myself taking Anticipate, to be honest. It's temporary dexterity. I think maybe I actually underrate this card a bit because 3 dexterity is pretty substantial and it costs 0, so it probably prevents you from taking a lot of damage. I just find that it can be awkward to fit into decks because it's just I just think that it can brick a lot of times if you draw into Anticipate plus a lot of strikes, and it's one of those cards you would want to take early game for sure. And if you draw into Anticipate and just all attacks, then it's just too high of a risk, and I just haven't been taking it due to that. It might be even better later on once you get more card draw and you can have more consistent hands, but I generally speaking don't take it, even though I think I might be underrating it a bit. Um, I'd be willing to put it in average for now. I am open to being wrong about this. I think it might be better than I am saying. And its upgrade gives 5 dexterity, which is obviously huge in a turn. It doubles the value of any defend you play. It's just, it has high upside, but it also, especially early game when you probably want it, there's a lot of times where it will just not have value. Assassinate, Innate, and I'm going to go to the base form of the cards when I'm doing these. So Assassinate is, generally speaking, really good if you are getting it at the start of the run from your Act 1 relic. It can dominate the early fights really well. It's one of the only ways to apply Vulnerable in this kit. Now that Terrified is gone, and does decent damage as well. 10 damage innate, and upgraded can deal 13. I think that it synergizes pretty well with Backstab. One thing to keep in mind is that it will take up a slot on your very first hand, which I mean on the silent that's less of a big deal. Um, I think Assassinate is just it's not going to change your run usually, but it's also usually something you're happy taking. I'm gonna put that in great for now. I do take it pretty often. I just don't think it's run defining, and it's not going to. And sometimes you just don't want to take it because you want other cards in your first hand. So yeah. Next we have Backflip. So you're blocking and drawing cards. I think Backflip is extremely good for a common, especially. You're just drawing two and blocking for 8 or 5. I feel like this is one of the commons I take the most. It's just extremely strong. I wouldn't like it more than an Acrobatics, for example, but it's just a way to easily get card draw into your hand and make your deck more consistent. It does have a 1 cost, which can sometimes you would rather play an Acrobatics for 1 cost because you're not getting the chance to discard a slide card with it, but you're also blocking, so it's a pretty high upside. I'm going to put Backflip in Amazing. I think it's one of the cards you're going to take a lot. Backstab is kind of similar to Assassinate, where especially early game, you're usually pretty happy to take it. I usually don't want it later on because I don't want it to take up a slot in my first hand, but it's pretty good. It doesn't apply vulnerable like Assassinate does, but it actually goes pretty well with Assassinate. So if I have an Assassinate or a Backstab, I like having them in tandem so I can have a pretty big first turn. I apply vulnerable with Assassinate and then Backstab. It's 0 cost. It's really good into the early combats, but it definitely falls off because 11 damage isn't doing a whole lot, for example, against the endgame boss. And it can also do decent work with After Image if you have that as innate because you get a free block from playing it. I just don't think it's as good as Assassinate, and I take it less often. I think therefore it's usually a good pickup, but not incredible. I'm fine with leaving it here. And actually, I'm going to order things in the tier as best as I can. I think I like Backflip here, and Assassinate's on its own. And I think out of these ones, I like Accuracy the most on average. Accelerant, yeah, I think this is how I like it set up. And also, another thing to note, there's not going to be very many cards in bad, and there's not going to be very many in the best. So those are for the exceptionally bad and exceptionally good cards. Blade Dance. Add 3 shivs into your hand. Exhaust. So, Blade Dance exhausts now, and in Slay the Spire 1, it didn't. So basically, you use it, and it does its thing. I think there are other better ways to use shivs usually, but it's usually pretty easy to fit one of these into your deck, even if it's not the same archetype as the rest of your deck, just because it's going to exhaust after you play it. You can also hold on to it and wait to play your accuracy, for example, before you use it, which is nice. But I just think that there are better ways to use shivs. It is a common, so for a common, it's pretty good. 1 cost, and you're doing 12 damage and upgraded 16. And there's a lot of ways to make shivs stronger. So due to that, I think Blade Dance is just a good card all around. Its upgrade is here. I just think it's a solid card, but it's not game changing. It's not one of the best ways to play shivs, and therefore I'll put it in good as well. I think it's probably a step above Anticipate. I probably like having a Blade Dance a bit more than I like having a. Actually, no. I think it's probably worse than Backstab because Backstab is 0 cost and it does 11. This is 1 cost and it does 12. And the thing is, though, there are a lot of synergies around playing cards and exhausting cards, so maybe Blade Dance is a bit better on average. I would say so, yeah. Blade of Ink, so this is actually the old version of the card. I don't think Untap.gg has the upgraded beta version of it. However, in the live version, it now gives, it's 1 cost still, but it gives 2 inky shivs into your hand, which means the shiv weakens per hit. And you get 2 of them in your hand, and it's pretty strong because you're basically applying 2 weak for 1 cost plus doing 6. No, you're doing. Are they upgraded shivs? I don't remember. Maybe not. But for 1 cost, you're throwing 2 weakness and 8 damage. Very good. And also the other Civ synergies in general. And when you upgrade it, it just adds another Inky Shiv to your hand, so you're getting 3. So that's 3 weakness for 1 cost. I think an upgraded Blade of Ink is really strong now. I think it's one of the best cards in the kit. It's basically just a Blade Dance that doesn't exhaust, and it's much better. Uh, I am comfortable putting the new Blade of Ink, so don't get it mistaken. With the new description, I am comfortable putting the new Blade of Ink in Amazing. I think it's better than After Image. I think it's weaker than Backflip. I think this is where I would put it for now. Okay, so we have Blur. Gain 5 block. Block is not removed at the start of your next turn. I think Blur is obviously a really good card. It does really well against bosses because you're carrying over block from previous turns. I sometimes feel like it is a bit of a win more card because usually when you have Blur being very useful, you already have a great block engine set up if you're carrying over a lot of excess block. So to me, it can feel like a win more, but that doesn't get rid of the value that it has because it really has saved me a lot in some of the harder boss fights. And if you know, for example, you're about to get hit for 50 in the next turn just based on how the combat goes, and you have in your hand, you can block the previous turn and carry it over. I think that it is probably not something that's incredible early on, but it's still good. I would put Blur in Great, and I think I would have it above Assassinate because it can actually be completely game changing, especially if you have a small deck, you can spam it. You pretty much just have a barricade. It has a really high upside, and its downside isn't too low at all. Worst case scenario, it's just another block. So I think it's a great card. I take it pretty often, and it might even be one of the cards that I'm underrating a bit. But this is just based on my win rates and how I'm playing. Oh, and upgraded, I believe it gives 8 block. Yeah, so it's a standard upgrade, 3 more block. Bouncing Flask is the same as in Slay the Spire 1. 2 energy, apply 3 poison to a random enemy 3 times. And I think Snakebite kind of kills Bouncing Flask at this point because it has Retain, and the poison difference isn't that high. And also, you throw it on an enemy at random. So this loses a lot of value into AoE fights, which are some of the harder fights in the game for sure. Um, I would almost rather take any other poison card over Bouncing Flask. I don't take it very often in Slay the Spire 2. I take it situationally, for example, if it's Act 1 and I need just some sort of way to really kill one of the tankier bosses fast. But generally speaking, you won't catch me clicking this card very often at all. I don't think it's outright bad. I don't think it's average either. I think it's a below average card. So I'm cool putting that there. The next card, oh, and I forgot to mention, its upgrade gives it another bounce, so 3 more poison, which is okay. I've definitely won a few Act 1s using an upgraded Bouncing Flask as my damage engine, but it's just not ideal. If you're in that situation, it's already not looking too great. It also synergizes well with the power card of, where is it? One, I do like it with Outbreak because every 3 times you apply poison, deal 11 damage to all enemies. I think it goes pretty well with that, obviously, because anytime you play Bouncing Flask, it triggers Outbreak, so that's 11 to all enemies. If you can get that synergy set up, then yeah, it's awesome. But the thing is, you probably don't want to take Outbreak unless you have a Bouncing Flask, and you might not want to take a Bouncing Flask unless you have an Outbreak. So I find that happening not very often. So I just, if for some reason you got a card pack and you got those two together, it would probably be very strong. But I'm not a huge fan of Bouncing Flask, so I'm gonna keep it in the meh territory. Bubble Bubble. If the enemy has poison, apply 9 poison. So 1 cost, and you're applying 9 poison, assuming that they're already poisoned. I think that's really good. Well, actually, not really good. It's just a very solid poison card. The condition, sometimes you'll just get it on your first turn or second turn, and you can't use it at all. I think the upside is generally pretty high, though, especially if you're building around a poison build. It's something you wanted to take with a lot of other poison cards, otherwise, it just doesn't do anything in a lot of combats. But regardless, I'd still put it in good because I think that if you have it with a Snakebite, for example, then you can retain the Snakebite and you can just make sure you always get to play this. If you get to play it for 1 cost, it gives insane value because 9 poison is so much early on, and even Act 2, it's a very high DPS card if you can apply it consistently. So I think it's usually a good addition to a deck, and if it's a poison deck, it's goes up like it's very good. So Bullet Time, I believe, is a pretty underrated card in general on the Silent in Slay the Spire 2, and that's because I think it's a bit harder to find energy sources than it is in Slay the Spire 1 on the Silent, although it's pretty similar, but still it's probably the biggest issue, and Bullet Time kind of takes that out of the equation. You can't draw anymore, so you need to use it at the end of your hand. So sometimes it does feel like it's bad because a lot of your decks on the Silent want to keep playing more cards. You want to keep playing Acrobatics. You want to play more Prepared. You want to discard things like Relax and Tactician to keep your turn going. Bullet Time you use to end the turn, but in a rare case where you're not having a draw deck, Bullet Time is extremely good, and it's really good with some of the high cost cards that you usually can't take. For example, Serpent Form, Envenom, Bouncing Flask. Well, Bouncing Flask isn't good, but it lets you play the higher cost cards a lot more, like Nightmare, um, Murder. It's good with these higher cost rares that you usually don't get to play. And sometimes it helps just for setting up to play powers. So if you pull Bullet Time with a lot of powers, then yeah, that's always really nice because you actually get to play them all. So worst case scenario, you play in early game. It's pretty good too, especially on turn 1 because you will get to play more cards than you usually would. And upgraded it only costs 2, so you can sometimes draw into it with an acro and then still play it. So I'm actually pretty high on Bullet Time. I don't think it's great though. I think it goes into the good category, but high in good tier. I think a lot of the cards probably will end up in this good tier, to be honest. That's just kind of how it ends up. There are a lot of just really good cards. Burst. This turn, your next skill is played an extra time. And upgraded, it just makes it so that your next 2 turns are played an extra time for 1 energy. I think Burst is insanely strong. I pretty much always take it when I see it. I don't think it's one of the best cards in the kit because it is dependent on other things being set up, while, for example, Adrenaline isn't. However, you almost always find a good use case for it. If you play before using, for example, Acrobatics, you get to draw 6 cards and discard 2, really strong. And then if you have it upgraded, you can do that to another card as well. Um, it's just very strong. I want to say it's one of the better rare cards in the kit for sure. I do take it very often. If I see it, I'm always pretty much happy to take it. Even if I don't have something that synergizes great with it in my deck at the time, I usually don't find it too hard to find something later into the run that goes well with it. And even then, for example, if you don't have any great skills, you can still just use it and it's the same as just playing another block. So it's almost never a bad take. I will therefore be putting Burst at the top of Amazing. Maybe after I'll move it up to the best, but I almost want to make a distinction between these. It's one of the best cards in the kit though, for sure. Calculate a gamble. Discard your hand, then draw that many cards and exhaust, and upgraded it retains. So obviously it's with Sly cards, Calculate a gamble got even better from Slay the Spire 1. If you get a really bad draw in general, you can just re-roll them all. It costs 0. When you use it, you can discard several Sly cards. So say you have like I'll probably end up cutting that out of the video. But Calculate a gamble, you can, for 0 costs, you can probably discard a lot of Sly cards a lot of the time. And even if you don't have a Sly deck, it will pretty much always have value if you just don't have a good hand. You can just re-roll it, especially upgraded because you have Retain, so it's not taking up a spot in your hand. So Calculate a gamble, I think, is also an amazing card. I almost want to put it in the best, but for now, let's put it in amazing. I still think that these two are distinctly probably the better ones, but it's an incredible card that I will almost always take when I see. Cloak and Dagger. So base Cloak and Dagger is good. You block 6 and you play a Shiv. I think upgraded Cloak and Dagger is incredible. I take a lot of Cloak and Daggers early game. I think it's an extremely underrated card. I love Cloak and Dagger Plus. You gain 6 block and you add 2 shivs into your hand. I think this helps so much in early combats and early elites. You get block out of it already, and then you also get 8 damage just for 1 cost. I think early Cloak and Dagger Plus is insanely good, and it's probably my favorite way to play shivs because you're also blocking a lot with it. And if you, for example, you have an after image plus or an after image, you're just getting so much block out of 1 cost because you're getting 3 from the after image, and then you're also getting 6 from this, and you're also dealing 8 damage. I think Cloak and Dagger Plus is even good in decks where you're not building around shivs. I think it's just very solid in general. I think it's underrated. I'm always happy to take this as a common pretty much in the early game. If Act 2 and 3 I don't have any Shiv synergies or anything, I'm generally less happy to take it, but even then, it's just an all-around really good card. I really am hot on Cloak and Dagger, and therefore I'm going to put it in great. I'm going to put it at the top of great. I think it's incredible. Well, not incredible, I think it's great. So Corrosive Wave is interesting. If you have a lot of card draw, I mean, it pretty much just wins fights for you, right? It's very strong. It goes really well with Acrobatics, which you're likely to have in your deck. It goes really well with Calculated Gamble because you can draw, for example, 8 cards if you're doing it on turn 1 or 7 cards. And then you're applying 7, 14, 20. You're applying 28 poison just on 1 turn. It only costs 1. I think Corrosive Wave is pretty overtuned with the best deck archetype. There are times where it's just not going to do anything in your deck, on rare cases where you don't have an Acrobatics or a Calculated Gamble or any card draw or like backflips or anything. And sometimes you'll draw it in your hand when you don't have those cards in your hand. So it's if you have, for example, well-laid plans, you're able to retain it and just play it on a good hand. But that's not always the case. You won't always find yourself uh, getting a lot of use out of Corrosive Wave, but it can be a sole damage engine in your deck. So you can win in Act 3 against the last two bosses with just Corrosive Wave damage. It also goes pretty well with Accelerant if you have it, because after just like 2 turns of using Corrosive Wave and getting maybe like 30, 40 poison total, if you have an Accelerant plus with it, you're just going to win pretty much right away against any boss. I think Corrosive Wave goes in great for sure. I think arguments could be made for having it higher, but I am looking at the cards above it, and I almost find them more useful more often. But Corrosive Wave is very high upsides, as in it's probably the best late game damage source in the game, but also not a completely necessary one a lot of the times. And maybe that actually makes me want to reconsider. Maybe I should put it in Amazing just because of how good it is late game. I feel like I'm putting a lot of cards in Amazing. Maybe that's just because the best silent cards are in the early letters in the alphabet. I think there's going to be more around here pretty soon. Dagger Spray does 4 damage to all enemies. This is just something that I take very early on to do AoE combats. It's good for like your first 3 combats, maybe your elites that have more than one opponent in Act 1, but that's only in the I usually only take it in the Water Act 1 or the docks or whatever it's called. Sorry, I'm really bad with names. For the eel elite, it's good for that, but even then it's not incredible. There are other AoE damage sources that do a lot. So Dagger Spray, I don't want to say it's bad. Like I take it sometimes, but it's not something I'm excited to see. I think it's worse than the average card. I will never take this outside of Act 1. There's not anything that like really elevates it other than like vigor or strength. But even then, there are just other things that hit more. For example, like shivs, flechettes. It's just not that good. So I'm gonna have it in matte, and I think it's okay to have cards that aren't great. I wouldn't want them to buff it. I think it has its niche use case, and it's fine. I like it as a design. I just don't think it's very good, and that's okay. Dagger Throw. Deal 9 damage, draw 1 card, discard 1 card. I like this early game a fair bit. If you have like 1 or 2 other Sly cards in your deck, it's basically a prepared plus 9 damage for 1 cost. I think it's one of the better common cards in the kit for sure. It's something I would probably put in great. I would distinctly like it more than most of these. It goes well with the Sly cards, like I mentioned. Upgraded, it deals 12 damage, so it's upgraded. It's not something you really want to upgrade very often unless it's like your only damage source. Uh, I think it's just solid all around, especially with the Sly archetype. It also helps you draw a card, so any card draw is good in pretty much any deck. You just want card draw and energy in every single deck, pretty much. I would also distinctly put it below Backflip, so I'll usually take Backflip above Dagger Throw, unless I really do need damage and I have a lot of Sly cards. So this is a common you'll see me take pretty often on the Silent. I think Assassinate is better. Yeah, I'm comfortable with around the bottom of great. I might end up moving this down to good based on how I'm feeling, but I think it's distinctly better than most of these cards on average. When I say better, I don't mean better in every circumstance, of course. Dash, gain gain 10 block, deal 10 damage, and upgrade is 13 and 13. And obviously, if you have dexterity, it scales with that. I think Dash is the early Act 1 elite killer and like combat killer. It's so good early on. It's basically so 2 blocks is 2 energy, 2 strikes is 2 energy. Dash basically has 4 energy value based on that, or that's how I kind of see it. And I find that it saves you a lot of health while also letting you kill enemies pretty fast. I think this is like the Act 1 GOAT on the Silent a lot of the times, assuming you don't really have any synergies in your deck yet. I think it's a good standalone card. It does a lot. It's not going to like win you the run or anything because ultimately it won't scale well into Act 3, but by then you probably have some sort of dexterity or another block engine and it's already done its role. So if you find this in Act 1, you almost always take it. If you find it later on, it's okay to ignore it, but I just think it's so good early on into the early combats, and upgrading it gives a lot of value too. I'm going to put Dash at the top of Great Tier. I think it's the best out of these cards. I don't think it's like a distinct run winner, but I'm always happy to take it. Deadly Poison. 1 cost, apply 5 poison. I don't think Deadly Poison's incredible, but if you upgrade it, if you're able to upgrade it or if it's already upgraded, it's definitely worth taking, especially in Act 1 to kill the Act 1 boss. It applies 7 poison then, and it can just do a lot of work in general for your Act 1 boss. You can stack it quite a few times. It's not too annoying to play because it only costs 1. There is another poison card that I'll be talking about later that I think is just almost a better version of this. I don't hate Deadly Poison though. I like it more than Bouncing Flask. I'm gonna put it in average. I think that it's probably better than actually. I think it's gonna be around the bottom of average. It's not great. So, okay, next we have Defend. I don't really care to go into it too much, but I will say that pretty much every block card in this kit is better than the base Defend you get. Um, for example, Deflect, which is our next one, 0 cost, 4 block. I'm comfortable just putting this in bad because I feel like inherently your base cards are going to be bad, and that's okay. I don't have too much more to say about it. Upgraded its 8 block, which I mean it's fine. If you get a replay on it, because there's an event in Act 1 where you get replay. If you get a replay on Defend, it goes up to like B tier probably, but that's not something you see all the time. And then if you upgrade it while having the replay, then yeah, it's excellent. You're getting 16 block for 1 cost. Good. But it's not really a unique card to the Silent, so I don't want to go too in detail about it. Okay, next we have Deflect, which is 0 cost, 4 block, and you upgrade it and it goes to 7 block. I think Deflect Plus is pretty good. I think, like I mentioned earlier, energy is something I struggle a lot with on this character, so 0 cost cards do get value inherently from that. But I think even still, it's just not such a great thing. Sometimes you take it early on if you have like no block. I think that it's probably something I would consider worse than. I think it goes in meh tier because it's not going to change your game at all. Usually you want to take something else over in your card reward, so I don't take it very often. Upgraded Deflect is pretty good, and it scales well with Dexterity because you can play a Footwork and then a Deflect, for example, and you're only spending 1 energy, while if you had a Footwork and then a block, you're spending 2 energy. So I think it goes pretty well with Footwork, but I don't find myself clicking it too often. So next we have Dodge and Roll. Gain 4 block, next turn gain 4 block, and upgraded at 6 and 6. And I think it's not so great unless you already have like a damage engine or a block engine going and you have like blurs and whatnot. It can really help scale your block later on if you have like blurs and footworks. With that being said, I am not too hot on it. I don't take it early on very much because sometimes you're just not going to get any value of the next turn block. It's a bit speculative because maybe you just draw into other block cards and you wouldn't have needed the next turn block. I think that it's not bad, but I also just think it's meh. I think it's one of the worst defense cards on this kit, but I will put it above Deflect. Next we have Echoing Slash. So I think Echoing Slash is pretty good into Act 1 for the AoE fights. But even then, for 1 cost, it's dealing 10 to all enemies. Like, it's good, but I'm never really taking it from an end of boss reward unless there's really nothing else. And sometimes it really does pop off. For example, if you're fighting like the regulars, you can just sometimes like one-shot the entire last phase. Or against like the eels, for example. Like it's definitely a good card, but for a rare, it's just I don't find myself taking it very often. It's just not going to use the second part of its passive very often. Therefore, I think I would probably put it below a lot of these cards. And by the way, when I'm rating these cards, I'm doing it weighted on its rarity somewhat. So for example, I have a higher standard for a rare card being good. If Echoing Slash was a common, it would obviously be extremely strong, but it's not. So I am comfortable putting Echoing Slash here. Actually, I think I would say it's good. I'll put it in good, near the bottom of good. Okay, Envenom. Whenever an attack deals unblocked damage, apply 1 poison. I think it's definitely a bit of a win more card. It costs 2, which is a bit annoying. And it upgraded. I wish the upgrade just brought it down to 1 cost, but instead it keeps the 2 costs, but it applies twice. It's really awkward playing high cost cards on the silent a lot of the time. And I therefore very rarely take Envenom unless I already have like a multi-hit setup, like Shivs and like Flechettes or something. But even then, I almost never take Envenom because usually if you're hitting that much, you're probably winning anyways, and the poison you're applying won't do a whole lot. So I probably think it's a below average card. I would like it above Bouncing Flask though. You can build, it's very niche. Like there are probably decks where Envenom is kind of like the carry late game damage engine against your Act 3 bosses, but generally speaking, I don't think it's good. Escape Plan. Draw 1 card. If you draw a skill, gain 3 block. 0 cost. So you're literally. It's similar to Accelerant in the sense that there's almost no downside. At worst, you draw a card for it, so no value. And at best, you just get 3 block. It's literally just complete upside. I would probably put Escape Plan. Obviously, it's not on this level, but you pretty much always take it. There are times when it's not gonna like make or break a run. It is a good clone target for sure, but I mean it's just always a welcome addition to a deck, but it's not going to make or break the run. I don't know how am I gonna rate those cards where like they're just like a welcome addition all the time. They're just objectively good almost always, but in this case specifically, it's not run defining. It won't make a losing deck win, and it won't make a winning deck lose. Um, I would say on average, I'm happier to see it than most of these picks. I'll leave it near the bottom of amazing for now, but it might end up being down here depending on how I'm feeling after. Expertise. Draw cards until you have 6 in your hand. And theoretically, this seems really strong, right? Like you're just, for 1 energy, you're drawing 5 or 6 cards sometimes. Upgrade it goes up to 7. So expertise is really good, but also a lot of the times in silent decks you're not going to have a small number of cards in your hand because you have things like acrobatics. And so I don't find myself actually getting a lot of value out of expertise often, probably because I should probably be taking it early game more. But even so, if you don't have any energy generation, it can just feel awkward to play, especially since it doesn't discard at the end. But sometimes it can resurrect bad hands in the late game. I think it's definitely, in theory, very good. I just haven't been getting much value out of it. I'm going to put it in good tier around here. I'll put it at the top of good tier. I'd say it's almost great. I, I might be criminally underrating expertise, but it's very good in theory, but in practice, I'm not getting much value out of it usually. Because late game, you're usually not drawing that many cards with it. It's bad into a lot of the Act 3 bosses, like Doormaker. It's bad against the Queen. I'm just not a huge fan. Expose, remove all artifact and block from the enemy. Applied to vulnerable, exhaust. So if I were rating for multiplayer, I would put Expose in like S tier because in Act 3 it does insane work removing like sometimes like 15 artifact, but I'm doing this for single player, so I think that applying to vulnerable is really nice. It's one of the only ways to apply vulnerable in this kit. And removing artifact is pretty good in Act 3 specifically, and sometimes in Act 2. I take Expose pretty often, especially if I have an attack-based deck with like shivs and whatnot. It's an above average card. I would even be willing to put it in great, probably up here. Yeah, because it's zero cost. I like zero cost cards in general in this kit. Expose just it's just useful. I don't know how else to put it. It's just extremely useful. And upgraded, I don't find myself upgrading it very much. It applies an extra vulnerable, which I mean, it's fine. I just don't find myself doing it very much. Fan of Knives. Shivs now hit all enemies, add 4 shivs into your hand. So I think it's a bit niche. It obviously requires setup, but it is pretty strong. I find myself taking it a lot and having a lot of use with it, for example, against Queen, against the Act 2 elites, like the Centipede, for example. It's a bit awkward to play due to its 2 cost a lot of the time, but it can definitely do a lot, but it's not ever incredible or like run winning. It also does give 4 shivs for 2 costs. I'm going to put it in good, maybe below accuracy. I think here's a good spot for it in my opinion. It definitely has been very useful for me, but it's just on average just good. Especially if you're building shivs, it's great, but I'm comfortable with that. Finisher, deal 6 damage for each attack. Already played this turn. Um, it's good with shivs a lot of the time, but also I wish its upgrade gave it a zero cost rather than giving it more damage because it just feels awkward to play a lot of the time. Because energy generation, like I said, is scarce. Pretty much all the ways to get shivs cost some form of energy, and it's good with shivs and maybe like strikes and stuff, but it doesn't provide a lot of value for me. If Blade Dance, for example, didn't exhaust, it'd be good. You definitely do get some really nice turns with it, but you almost want it's very hit or miss, and you almost need well laid plans with it to actually like really pop off. I am therefore comfortable putting it in average. I wish it was a bit better. I liked it more in Slay the Spire 1. I think I'm going to put it at the top of average though. It can go really well if you get enhancements that give it more damage, and you get that relic that makes enhancements do more. I've definitely had a run with it where I had an enhanced finisher and it was hitting like a bunch, but I think that it's pretty average. I'm not excited to see it a lot of the time. It's fun to build around. It feels really satisfying when you get a nice turn with it. I'm going to exclude multiplayer cards. Flechettes. So for me, the way I've been approaching this island is I'm removing pretty much only strikes and adding as many skills as possible. For example, I want like a lot of acros and stuff, and sometimes I'll just have like a Flechettes in my hand plus a bunch of skills, and it hits for like 35, 40 unupgraded. And then upgraded, it does even more. I think Flechettes is probably like one of the best attacking cards on this island. I think that in a deck where you're getting a lot of acros and stuff in Act 1, Flechettes alone can almost carry you through Act 1, and it can be a really good damage engine against the boss for just 1 cost. I am happy putting Flechettes in great, probably at the top of great. I almost want to put it in amazing because it does amazing things. But also, late game, usually you have a different damage engine with your draw acrobatics type builds. It can definitely carry you through Act 1 and can do a lot in Act 2. I think it's very good. Flack. It's Sly, so that gives it an upside. Deal 7 damage to all enemies. Even if you don't have Sly, 1 energy for 7 damage to all enemies, it's basically similar to a Dagger Strike. So therefore, I think it's just inherently pretty good. Although it was nerfed to 6 damage in the current beta patch, so that is a bit of a downside. I think that there are better Sly cards and better ways to deal damage with these engines, but it's still pretty good. I definitely want to put it in good tier. I think I am more excited to take a Backstab and the cards above it over a Flack, but it was definitely overpowered at the release of Slay the Spire 2, but now it's just like, okay, I'll take it, especially if I already have like a prepared or an acro. Follow through, I think, is a card I haven't been using enough because it is really good. So if the last card you play was a skill, it applies weak to all enemies, and it also deals 6 damage to all enemies. It's just solid all around, especially into those AoE fights where you're getting hit by every enemy. I think it's really good in Act 1. I think it's just good throughout the game. I think follow through is a great card. I would be happy taking follow through probably above Dagger Throw and Assassinate and Expose. I think I'm happy with this. And I believe the upgrade also gives it 2 weak, if I remember correctly, which is really strong. It's one of those cards you're happy to upgrade, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, it deals 2 weak to all enemies and increases the damage. So it's also a happy upgrade. It's completely fine to upgrade it, and you're usually happy with the outcome. So follow through, really good. I don't take it enough. I think I need to start more. Footwork. So, this is an incredible card. I don't. I almost want to put it in the best. It dexterity is just overpowered. You just take less damage. It only costs 1, and you get 2 dexterity, and you can upgrade it, and it's 3. I pretty much, if I see a footwork, I pretty much just take it. I think I'm happier to get a footwork than almost any of these. I'm going to put it in the best for now, but I might move it down to amazing. We shall see, but for now, I am okay with this. Sorry, I need to answer a Teams message for work. Yeah, footwork is just strong in general. I think it's one of the best cards in the kit, easily. I will almost always take it as value throughout the entire run. Sometimes it can be a bit awkward to play if you have a lot of powers, but it's almost always worth it. Sometimes in shorter combats you won't end up playing it, but that's okay. Grand Finale, it's just a curse in almost every deck, but obviously it's hard to pull off, but it has a really high payoff. So I'm going to put it on bad and average because I feel like in 95% of runs you'll probably play it like once or twice. I had it enchanted with Retain somewhat recently, and that was insanely strong. And I also got to clone that card, so I had 2 Grand Finales with Retain. And obviously that just like won me the run because I just built around it because I got it early on. But that's not a common use case. If you can somehow get Retain on it, it goes to like S tier, but yeah, no, it's just generally speaking a curse in your deck. It's not great. It has good synergies with some of the draw cards though, because it's it goes really well with like escape plan ones where you just draw one. You want to have 0 cards to draw, and you almost need to build your deck in intervals based around it, if that makes sense. So for example, you want it to be intervals of 5 plus 2, because you start with 2 extra cards in your first hand. So you want it to be in your hand when there's nothing else to draw. And it's just awkward fitting that in a lot of the time without Retain on it. So it can go well with well-laid plans. If you get well-laid plans and then you find a Grand Finale, it's usually fine to take. But yeah. Let's see. Hand trick. Gain 7 block, add slide to a skill in your hand this turn. So the adding slide to a skill in your hand, I think this card would be great if you could apply it to like powers, for example, or attacks, but other skills, it's just not all that useful a lot of the time, especially with Master Planner. I don't find myself taking this very often, even if I have acrobatics and like discard cards. I think it goes in meh. I don't think it's outright bad because it does give 7 block, but it's not great. I would probably take it above these 2. Even upgraded, I believe it just gives 10 block, so I don't know. I don't put too much thought into this. I don't think there's any like really high cost skills that like you need to apply Slide to, and it's just for one turn, so it's almost basically just like a 7 block card. That's how I see it. It's not great. There are instances where you can play Hand Trick on a skill, and you have it prepared in your hand, and then you get to play an extra skill with it. But even still, it's just I don't know. I don't think it's that good. Haze is Sly, apply 4 poison to all enemies. Out of the Sly damage sources, I don't think it's terrible. I think it's better than Flick Flack, but I don't think it's a great card. I think it's just a good card. I think I would just put it above. I think this is a pretty good spot for it. It's pretty good into bosses because poison just ticks down slowly, and it's also an AoE hit. I think it's just like objectively better than Flick Flack. Especially, it's worth upgrading if you get it because it applies 6 poison, which I know it's just 2 more, but it also with poison it's a bit different. Where like just having like 1 or 2 more is a pretty big deal. So I'm comfortable just putting it in good. You know what? I think I'm comfortable putting Echoing Strike up a bit more after thinking about it, because I think it's just better than most of these cards. And I think I'm comfortable moving some of these down to the top of average, because I don't think these are actually like better than the average card now that I think about it. Okay, Hidden Daggers. Discard 2 cards, add 2 shivs into your hand. So you're basically just discarding for shivs. Upgraded gives shiv pluses. So in theory, I actually don't think this card is great, but when I've used it, it actually feels really good a lot of the time, especially if you're like out of energy and you have nothing left to play in your hand. You can just play Hidden Daggers and you get 12 more damage. You can also use it to play your other Sly cards. I think Hidden Daggers is a card I've been sleeping on a bit. I think it's pretty good early game as well, because you're basically just getting 8 free. Alright, my headset died and uncharged again. Anyways, I would put the Hidden Daggers in the bottom of good, I think. Actually, yeah, I think it's better than Blade Dance on average. Just because inherently zero cost cards get more value in the silent. And upgraded, it's pretty good as well. You get 4 more damage out of it, and it's a zero cost, so I like it. Infinite Blades at the start of your turn, add 1 shiv into your hand. I mean, it's okay. I don't really like it because it's 1 cost. It goes pretty well with Phantom Blades because you can always just do damage with that 1 extra shiv you get, so you don't need to like retain your other shivs. It's just not. I don't think it's an average card. I think it's a meh card. I think it's worse than Envenom and Bouncing Flask. I would put it down here. It's just even if you have a shiv deck, I just don't think it's that great. Even like just 1 shiv is such a small amount for 1 cost. It's just not great. I don't know how else to put it. Even if, for example, the next card we're talking about, Knife Trap, which I think is very good. Even if you have Infinite Blades with Knife Trap, just that 1 shiv per turn isn't going to do a whole lot because fights usually don't last all that long, right? So you're not getting too much value out of it. And I think there's just other things you'd rather spend your energy on. However, Knife Trap is a late game nuke. It can pretty much solo win you Act 3 fights, assuming you have other ways to play shivs. Um, it's very good with Afterimage. It's just one of the main damage engines in this kit, and I usually take it if I see it in Act 1, and then I start building shivs. Like, it's that good that you want to build around it if you see it almost. I think it's a bit underrated. And if you upgrade it, you get shiv pluses. So if just say you play normal shivs for most of your fight from other cards, if you upgrade if you have an upgraded knife trap, then they become upgraded in your exhaust pile when you play it again with knife trap. So I take knife trap a lot. It's one of those cards I want to build around sometimes. I think I like it better than Corrosive Wave, oddly enough, because it's pretty much if you have defense and shivs and you have a knife trap, you pretty much win the run. That's how I see it. I think it's an amazing card. I will almost always take it. well, not always take it, but early on in the first half of the run I find it, I'm going to take it, I'm going to build around it. It's just a great late game damage engine. Leading Strike they've changed recently, and I think they made it better. It deals 3 base damage, upgraded 6, and then it gives you 2 shivs into your hand each turn. This old version I was never taking, but the new version where you're dealing 3 damage and you are getting 2 shivs, I'd say it's a good common. Um, I probably like it over, I'd say at the bottom of good. I think I like a Blade Dance a bit more usually, but the thing is, Blade Dance does exhaust, but there's also other ways of generating shivs that I like more than leading strikes. For example, a Cloak and Dagger. I think leading strike is just like a good common, especially early on. It's fine taking. Leg sweep. Apply 2 weak, gain 11 block. Upgraded, it applies 3 weak and 14 block. Yeah, it's just excellent block. It does cost 2 energy, which sometimes can be a bit hard to find in the silent, but I still think that it's generally worth playing, especially upgraded. I think it's a really good upgrade. I'm going to put this probably here. I think I like a dash a bit more. Actually, yeah, I think I like it here. It's a great card. It's just weak plus a lot of block for just 2 energy. I say just 2 energy, but that's actually a lot on this character. It's definitely can save you from a turn where you'd usually take a lot of damage. I think it's really good and usually a good addition to a deck. Malaise. Enemy loses X strength, apply X weak. I think Malaise, for example, I had Malaise on the defect yesterday from one of the events. I think where you're not generating much energy, you're usually not getting that much value out of Malaise. Or at least you still are, especially if it's upgraded because you can play it with 0 energy and it just lowers the strength and a weak. And then it basically just becomes a neutralize almost. I would put it in if I saw one in like Act 1 for example, I would take it. Like I think it's really good. I think if you have like a lot of tacticians and stuff, it can basically win you the run because you can weaken an enemy so much. But generally speaking, I'm not having a lot of silent runs where I'm just have abundance of energy, right? So uh, I think Malaise is probably here on average with a very high upside, and sometimes it just is like a curse in your deck almost. So I'm comfortable just putting it there. Master Planner, I think, is quite good, but it's really awkward to play it if it's 2 costs. So you would want to upgrade it, which makes it a 1 cost card. It's really good with, for example, Acrobatics because you can make Acrobatics Sly if you have more than one in your deck, and you can just kind of keep cycling your Acrobatics by discarding it. So you can get a lot of value out of that in like a later boss fight. It can almost be an engine to win Act 3 bosses and stuff. Sometimes it's a bit awkward to play in like Act 2 if you find it, or if you get it from like Act 1, it can just be a bit awkward to play. Therefore, I'm going to put it in good, but at the top of good because I find it's usually carrying a lot of value. Actually, no. If I see it, I'm going to take it above probably any of these cards. I'll put it in great, especially upgraded. If you don't upgrade it, it's just at 2 costs. It's just not so great because 2 energy is hard to play on the silent if you're not getting any like block or a damage from it. So I'll leave that there. Memento Mori, deal 8 damage, deal 4 additional damage for each discarded card this turn. I don't think it's very good because it's an Act 1 damage engine, if that makes sense. Because even if you're discarding a lot late game, it's just only giving you 4 extra per discard and 5 extra if you're upgrading it. It's, there's just better damage engines like Flechettes, for example, if you're like playing that kind of slide discard build. Uh, I don't know. I would put it in average probably, but near the top of average. I think right here is a pretty good spot. I'm not finding myself get too much value out of it. I think the most I've ever had with one Memento Mori was like 50 damage. I don't know. It's just generally not doing a whole lot for me. Mirage is interesting. So it's gain block equal to poison on all enemies. It exhausts, and if you upgrade it, it costs 0. So I think this is really strong for fights where you're going to take a lot of damage from like one big turn. You can almost hold on to it, especially if like a well-laid plans and you're applying a lot of poison. It is a bit niche, so if you're not obviously applying any poison, it doesn't do anything. Uh, but there are some use cases where it's actually saved me from losing a run. So assuming you're applying a lot of poison and that's kind of your damage engine, I would put Mirage like high, but on average, I would say so if its upside is like amazing or great, and then sometimes it's just bad because it doesn't do anything, I think putting it in average is probably fair. And and if you get a Mirage, for example, early on, it's not something that's like so good you really want to build around. So yeah, I think average or even. I think I'm happier to take almost any of these cards now that I'm looking at them. I'm gonna put it in meh. Actually, I'd say it's below average. Okay, Murder is pretty good with the general setup you play a lot on the Silent, where you're drawing a lot with Acrobatics and Gamble and whatnot. The thing is, it does cost 3, and a lot of the times you're ending your turn when you're out of energy, so you've already played a bunch of your stuff, so it can be a bit awkward to play. With that being said, it is pretty strong in Act 3 bosses, where the fight's going on for a while. Sometimes you can deal like over 100 damage easily with it, but even then, it still costs so much, even upgraded with 2 energy when it's upgraded. And I think there's just other ways to apply damage in those sorts of builds. It's definitely like a late game damage engine. I'm going to put it in good. I would put it near like the bottom of good, like around here, because it definitely can. It's almost like a bad like a below average damage engine for the main deck archetype, which has like acrobatics and prepareds and stuff. Um, it gets the job done. That's how I kind of see it. Neutralize, 0 cost, deal 3 damage, apply 1 week. It's one of your starting cards. I think Neutralize is obviously really good. It prevents you from taking so much damage early on. Obviously, this isn't a card that you take. You're born with it as a silent. Um, if I were to rank it among card rewards, I would probably put it in good. But since it's a default card, I almost want to put it at the bottom of great. It just sometimes you just take substantially less damage in combats because of it, and therefore I think it does a lot for pretty much any silent run you're playing it whenever you get it into your hand. It's great. I'm a big fan. Next we have Nightmare. So 3 costs and you get to add 3 copies of that card into your hand. Nightmare costs 3, which is awful because you don't have much energy generation on this character unless you have a lot of tacticians, which isn't something you can rely on. I generally like to build as if I'm not going to find any because a lot of the times I don't. Nightmare is very dependent on finding another card that's actually worth cloning, so like your Acceleration, for example, usually another 0 cost. I don't find myself taking Nightmare very often. You can definitely like break the game with it. You can get some insane synergies. Uh, I just don't think that there's too many cards worth cloning, and it just costs too much energy to play a lot of the time. And it has a like an extremely high upside, but usually it's just a curse in your deck. So it pains me to say it, but I'm going to put Nightmare in average because about in 10% of runs it's probably going to be like S tier, but then in like the other it's going to be like meh or like bad. You're just not going to play it very often. So yeah, I guess you can build around it though. So maybe I'll put it in good because if you get it, you can build around it such that you can find a card that is worth cloning. So some of your better power cards like Footwork. I like taking it with Footwork. I like taking it with Abrasive, After Image. So like some of these power cards, if you find that with Nightmare, then yeah, it's pretty good. But you can't really rely on that. I think it's also pretty good with the new Blade of Ink. Noxious Flames. At the start of your turn, apply 2 poison to all enemies and upgrade it applies 3. Uh, it's pretty good. I think that I would put Noxious Flames in average though, below Backstab. it's a nice way to apply poison long term in fights. It goes well with Bubble Bubble, because you're always going to have poison on the enemy with it, unless you have Accelerant, upgraded Accelerant going on. So it's not going to like change your run, I don't think. It goes well with that relic where you apply an extra poison for each time you apply poison. It's pretty good. I'll take it a lot of the times in Act 1, or if I'm just building around poison, but generally speaking, you don't want it as your sole poison engine, but it can get work done, especially against the Act 1 boss, so not bad for only 1 energy. Outbreak. Every 3 times you apply poison, deal 11 damage to all enemies. Outbreak is bad, I think, because usually you're only really applying poison once per turn, and the only time you're not is usually with Bouncing Flask, and you're not taking Bouncing Flask very often anyways, and you're not taking Outbreak unless you already have a Bouncing Flask, so it almost never does a whole lot. 11 damage to all enemies for applying poison 3 times is just not a high payoff. Like maybe there's a decent case to be made also with like Noxious Fumes in this, because after 3 turns you're basically doing 11 to all enemies, so it's like a really bad version of Bomb almost. But um, I don't know. It's just not very good. Maybe bad is a bit of an overstatement. I'm gonna put it at the bottom of meh because it's. I mean, I'll take it sometimes if I have even like a deadly poison or a deadly poison and a snakebite, then it feels okay. But it's just not going to make your run any better. Usually, it just makes your deck worse. So bottom of meh is where it goes for now. I wouldn't say it's outright bad. Although you know what, I will put it in bad. I think I think I would rather defend a lot of the time. And even like the 1 or 2 casts of Grand Finale are probably better in a run overall than Outbreak. Phantom Blades, Shivs gain retain. The first Shiv you play each turn deals 9 additional damage. Once again, similar to Fan of Knives, I don't think that this is a great power for Shivs. You can definitely do a bit more damage with it, and it goes pretty well with. I guess getting retain on Shivs can be pretty good, assuming you have like a way to get strength or something during that turn. And you also you can just hold on to 1 Shiv and just deal more with it each turn. I think I would rate it below Fan of Knives. I think I would put it in average, probably around here. I don't think it's that good. I think it's good with Infinite Blades, but better than Infinite Blades. And looking at this now, I want to move accuracy up a bit because Shiv decks are actually pretty common, even if you're not completely building around it, and this just basically doubles the value of each Shiv. And compared to the other Shiv power cards, I think it's just substantially better. So I'm going to move accuracy up now that I have laid the other ones out. It's fine. It's like, I don't know, Phantom Blades doesn't really like make a Shiv build overpowered, if that makes sense. Like it helps it. It still costs an energy to play, so sometimes you just don't end up playing it. It's not one of your priority power cards to play usually, but it's like okay. Piercing Whale. So this is a classic card. All enemies lose 6 strength. A lot of hard AoE fights in this game, so it gets a lot of value. Piercing Whale is a card you usually want at least one of in your deck, and for that reason, I think I don't need too much explanation. I think it just goes into amazing. It's just one of the staple cards, and it can for 1 cost you can sometimes just get so much value out of it. You find it in most runs because it's a common. It's so nice. I like playing it a lot. I think usually it's always a safe take. So goes in amazing. Pinpoint. Deal 17 damage, costs 1 less energy for each skill played this turn. So I think this is a really good Act 1, Act 2 damage card for, like, for example, decks that have Acro and Prepared, and even just defense, because sometimes you can, if you need to defend 3 times, you can still end up doing 17 damage. I think, or sorry, no, it's 15 now with 19 upgraded. I think that this is a better damage card than Flechettes on average. I think generally, actually, I would put it below. I would put it in great tier, but I would put it around here. I think. I think it's just like a solid early game damage card that you can play a lot and you won't take a lot of damage if you're able to play a lot of skills that block for you. I like it. I take it pretty often, especially early game. Poison Stab. Deal 6 damage, apply 3 poison. I don't take it very often. It's kind of a similar thing to Dagger Spray where like sometimes I'll take it to survive, but it's not something I actually want in my deck. 3 poison is just such a small amount. It doesn't do too much over time. I guess over time it does 3 plus 2 plus 1, so it does 6 damage total over time, and then it just does the same amount as a strike. It's not bad, like it's better than your strike, but it's just not good. It's not worth taking a lot of the time. Even if you have a poison build going, there's just better ways to apply poison. It's just not worth taking a lot of the time. So Pounce is an interesting one. You deal 12 damage, and the next skill you play costs 0. So if you have this, for example, with Nightmare, then yeah, that's obviously really strong, or even some of your other skills. It also gets 18 damage when you upgrade it, which is a huge damage boost. You get 6 more damage. So I think Pounce Plus is insanely strong. I think Pounce in general is really strong. I would put it in Great, and I would probably put it about here. I think that it's usually a welcome addition to a deck. Even late game, you can find yourself playing it so that you can play some more expensive skills like Knife Trap, for example. It's just pretty good overall, especially I think in Act 1 where you want to kill things pretty quickly before they apply strength and stuff to themselves. You can apply pounce and then you can also block. I think it's really good. Kind of similar in a way to Pinpoint where you're able to do damage despite also blocking. Precise Cut. Deal 13 damage, deal 2 less for each other card in your hand. I don't think this is very good at all. I think that maybe they should make this like, well, it's a 0 cost, so that it inherently does have some value. I just don't find myself having small hands very much on the silence, and even then, say I have just this in my hand, 13 damage isn't like a huge payoff. Um, it's just, I don't really understand the point in this. I think it's a meh card. I think it's probably better than Deflect. Yeah, I think this is a good spot for it. I just never find myself. I'll take it sometimes in like early Act 1, but even in Act 1 it feels like it falls off a lot of the time unless you can. No, even then I've just never had like a good time with Precise Cut, and I always try to make it work, but it's just not great. Predator, deal 15 damage for 2 energy, and you draw 2 extra cards next turn. So 2 energy is a lot on the silent for sure. I think also drawing 2 cards isn't a huge deal a lot of the time on the silent because you're going to be getting card draw from elsewhere in your kit. I would pretty much always rather take Predator over it, for example, if I want like a 2-cost damage source or even like Pinpoint or something. I don't think it's exceptionally useful. I don't think it's so if I look at the average cards, I think I would put it in with those. And I think I like it more than probably these. I think I would put it around here. I might be criminally underrating this card because in theory, drawing 2 cards, especially early on when you don't have a lot of card draw, could be useful. Whenever I've taken it though, I've just kind of felt like it just doesn't do a whole lot. I'm not huge on Predator. I don't think it's. I believe its upgrade is 20 damage, right? You get 5 extra, so like I mean upgraded it's fine. I just think that there are better cards for sure. Uh, yeah, for 2 costs, you probably want to spend your energy on other things. I don't think it's exceptional or anything. So I'll leave it at that. Prepared is one of the best cards in the Silence kit, for sure. I would put that in the best. It's one of the best cards in the kit, easily. Um, I want to put it up here, because it's a common. You're going to get usually a few of these in your deck, 1 or 2 per run. It's important because it costs 0, but it also draws and discards. So you get to play, for example, a Tactician on a turn where you have 0 energy left, and you can revive your turn, and then play another Acro. It's just these two kind of feed into each other, where it's just probably I don't know if I would put Acro. Actually, yeah, I would put Acro still as the best, but I think Prepared is up there as well. I think it's just extremely strong. I don't really know what else to say about it. Makes your deck more consistent. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And upgraded, it draws 2 and discards 2. Late game, you definitely like that. Although early game, sometimes it doesn't feel as nice. Sometimes I like keeping prepared unupgraded on purpose, oddly enough. So yeah, prepared. There's just no downside usually to taking it, and potential high upside if you get the Sly cards that you want. For example, I could play prepared, 0 cost, and then I could discard Abrasive, which is a 3 cost power, and play it. Upgraded prepared, I could play that, draw into both like Abrasive and like a Tactician or a Reflex, and then I could keep drawing. Yeah, it's one of the staple cards that you definitely want to take, and I usually take as many as I see. Unless there's rare circumstances where I won't, but I think Prepare is just very good. Reflex is next. I think Reflex goes near the top of Amazing. It goes really well with Prepared, which I just spoke about. I'm gonna put it at the very top of Amazing for now. Yeah, basically paired with Acro and Prepared, you're just getting so much card draw. It's a Sly card, which is nice. There are times, like, I wouldn't take Reflex until I have an Acro or Prepared, but generally speaking, I will usually have a Reflex in my deck by Act 3, and it gets a lot of value, so I'll take it. It's really good. It also goes well with, for example, other cards that discard, such as the Hidden Daggers, for example. I've had nice runs where I've had a few Reflexes in my deck, and I just play Hidden Daggers. I draw more, and I also get 2 Shivs. I don't know, I just think it goes really well into most decks. It's very good. Ricochet. Deal 3 damage to a random enemy 4 times. So it's a multi-hit. It upgrades to doing 5 hits. It's a Sly, so obviously that's a huge upside, because generally you're going to want Sly cards. It goes well with enhancements and strength and stuff, even though there's not that many ways to get strength. But sometimes you'll find relics and stuff. I think Ricochet is substantially better than Flick Flack and Haze. I would definitely put it in good. I think I like it better than all of these. I think it's a great card, better than Dagger Throw, but I would take an Assassinate over it for sure usually. Yeah, I would put Ricochet in great. I think it's probably one of your better slide discard cards, especially early on. Usually you get a different damage engine with these card draw decks, but early game it can definitely do a lot, and there's ways to make it much stronger with enhancements. Serpent Form costs 3. It's pretty interesting. It's one of those cards that's good with bullet time. If you can find a way to play Serpent Form, it's insanely strong. I wish its upgrade made it a 2 cost, but instead it gives it 6 damage every time you play a card. Serpent Form is a bit of a win more card. That's how I view it. If you have the luxury of playing a 3 cost, then you're kind of chilling usually. It goes well with cards like Prepared and your other 0 costs, so it can do a lot there. And Sly cards, whenever you play a Sly card, it'll also proc. I find it hard to rate this because sometimes it's insanely strong and it's like your main damage engine. Other times you just don't get to play it. So therefore, I'm cool with putting Serpent Form. I feel like on average you will get usage out of it in a deck, and sometimes in any combat that you actually get to play it, it will do a lot. Therefore, I'm going to put Serpent Form in. I think it belongs in Great. Maybe. I think I like it better than this. I think a lot of people underrate Serpent Form in a way because energy is definitely a scarcity. But sometimes it's worth just taking damage in like a boss fight, for example, to play Serpent Form because of how much it'll actually end up doing for you. I'm gonna put it here. Uh, I'll put it here because usually I think I will take a Serpent Form over Master Planner. I think it's if you find one in like the Act 1 boss, it's pretty easy to build around. I definitely do like Serpent Form. If you can find a way to play it consistently, then it's like almost S tier, but that's easier said than done on this character. So very high upside. I just think it's very strong in general, but sometimes just awkward to play. Shadow Step, discard your hand. Next turn, attacks deal double damage. So I only think that. Wait, Shadow Meld is here as well. Double your block gains this turn. I don't find myself taking it very often. It might be good. Wait, where did Shadow Meld go? So upgraded, it costs 0. So upgraded Shadow Meld is a treat to take usually. Oh crap, I opened the wrong page. Um, upgraded Shadow Meld is very strong, but usually you don't need it. Like, usually your block engine's fine on the Silent. You're not taking much damage anyways. It's a bit of a win more. But also an upgraded Shadow Meld is pretty strong. I would say it's good. Like, I don't think it's exceptional. Because usually Footwork and then a few good block cards is enough. It's good. I would probably put it... I would put it around here with these other rares. And upgraded, it's obviously very strong. Maybe I'm underrating it a bit. I don't take Shadow Meld that often, but it's okay. Shadow Step is discarding your entire hand. Next turn, attacks deal double damage. I think it's good if you already have a lot of like reflexes in your hand, for example, or you know you're going to have a high damage turn coming up. For example, you might have like a Flechettes with a lot of other skills or something. It's just a bit awkward to take sometimes, and usually it's something you want to take after you already have a lot of Sly stuff set up. I think it's okay. I think I like it better than these, but maybe. I think I like it more than these. I would put it near the top of good. I take it sometimes, but it's not exceptional. Skewer, I think it's. I would put it at like near the bottom of average, I think, because objectively, for one cost, it's pretty good. Or not even that good. It just deals 7 damage for 1 energy. It scales well with vigor, strength, if you do find a source of that, which is hard to find. If you somehow have an abundance of energy on this character, so you have a lot of tacticians, then sure, it will do a lot, but there's just better ways to deal damage with that same energy. Um, Actually, I would put it at the top of meh. I just don't. Gosh. All right, I'll be sure to cut that out, but my headset cut out again. But I was basically saying that Skewer just doesn't get much value. If somehow you have an abundance of energy on the Silent, you probably want to spend it on other things. It's not very strong. So Skewer goes in meh tier for me. I liked it more than Slay the Spire 1. Slice is also, it kind of goes into the same category as Deflect in my mind. It's fine. Uh, Basically a free strike. I think I like it probably around here. So I would rather take these two over a Slice. It just doesn't add much to a deck. Usually it just ends up loading it. It doesn't like move the needle in Act 1, so it's not incredible. Okay, so now we've got our Snakebite, which is a very controversial card in this game. Some people think it's like complete dog shit. Other people think it's very good. I tend to fall in the boat of this is a very good card, maybe even an amazing card. Why is it going like that? I think it's an amazing card. Uh, you basically solo win the Act 1 boss if you just find a Snakebite, which you often do in Act 1. I think I would put it here, roughly. It upgraded deals 10 poison, which is insane overtime damage for just 2 energy. Obviously, that alone isn't enough to make it OP, because by that logic, like Bouncing Flask would be OP. It's OP because of Retain. So basically, it's not taking up a spot in your hand like that. Even late game, like you can still have it, and it's just not doing too much. And it even does a lot against the late game bosses, especially if it goes well with like other poison cards like Accelerant, etc. Retain is just extremely strong. I don't really know what else to say about it. Um, yeah, it's kind of like the Act 1 goat on this character. It might fall off a little bit, sure, but it can almost solo win you Act 1. It's really good against elites. You can play it at convenient timing. So, like for example, when an enemy's not attacking, you can apply this. On turns you don't need to block. You can play it at your own convenience, and it does a lot of damage over time. I don't know. I just don't understand how people think this is a bad card when Retain is just OP. That's how I see it, at least. So Speedster was nerfed recently. I believe the upgraded form is now deal 2. Wait, I should probably pull it up on this. So I believe Speedster is now upgraded to do this, and I think it's 1 damage to all enemies as of now. This probably used to be like an S tier card. Now that it's nerfed, I would still put it in amazing. I would put it probably... I think it's up here. I still think it's so strong. It definitely did get a hit, but the fact that you can scale damage with just spamming acrobatics and sly cards and like reflex and prepareds, I just think that you're going to be spamming that in a lot of decks late game. It's basically just like a free way to deal a lot of damage, and it's also AoE damage. So I don't know. It's just an OP power. It does cost 2, which can be a bit annoying, but you're usually using it as like a damage source in late game. It's also decent in like Act 2. In Act 1, you won't get too much value out of it, but the value you do get out of it once it becomes useful is just so big. I don't know. I think it's extremely strong, and I find myself winning. Usually, if I get a speedster and like a few like prepareds and acrobatics, it's over, and also goes really well with calculated gamble. Just a great card. Next is a multiplayer card. I don't really count that. Storm of Steel, it's pretty good. I find myself liking it a lot with a knife trap because you just get to play a lot of shivs. It's really good also if you have, for example, an after image already in play. You also get to discard things like your sly cards, including reflex and tactician and whatnot. Um, I think it's probably a card I could take a bit more. If you upgraded, all the cards that you discard become shiv pluses, which is nice. Sometimes you can just nuke with it, especially if you already have, for example, accuracy set up. Uh, I think it's solid. I'm not going to put it in like amazing or anything. I think like the bottom of great is probably where I would put it because I'll almost always find value with it if I have like any card draw at all. But it's not like going to win you the run, I don't think. Strangle is interesting. So I don't find myself taking it that often. I wish it was more of like a power card, but that would probably make it overpowered. And I guess Speedster is kind of similar already. Or I guess it would basically just be Serpent Form then. Um, I think it's pretty good early on with Shiv decks. Also just deals 8 damage straight up. And you can, in theory, if you play like Strangle, for example, and then 2 Blade Dances plus, you're going to get, what are you going to get? Like 16 damage plus 8 out of 1 energy. Like it has pretty high upsides, but I don't think I value it super highly. I would put it in good. It's better than the average card. I would put it probably around here. I think it's a solid card, especially in Act 1. Even later on, it can be a really good damage source. For example, if you have like a lot of discard and like a lot of card draw and you're recycling through your deck, you can play Strangle once, and then it probably does a lot of damage if you're playing a lot of cards, right? So it's not bad. It also does damage through shield, so that's also worth noting. It makes it lose HP and it doesn't deal 2 damage. It's just actually taking away the HP. So I think that's solid. I think it's okay. I think it's good at the very least. Maybe I underuse it a bit. Strike is just bad. I don't I don't know. It's one of the default cards. Every 1 cost attack does more than it. Even Slice is a 0 cost and it's the exact same as it. So I don't know. I'm never really taking it. Even upgraded, just not great. And then also with replay, it's obviously good, but that goes for pretty much anything. Sucker Punch, deal 8 damage, apply 1 week. If you upgrade it, it applies 2 week and does 9 damage. It's one of those, it kind of goes into this category of like an early game take I will have sometimes. It can go, for example, with tracking somewhat, but it only applies 1 week. Like it's not doing that much. I generally don't find the weak synergies on this deck very good. And I think Neutralize is already like a built-in source of weak that you can upgrade and it already applies to. I just think it's like a worse form of Neutralize, kind of, because I really don't want to spend energy on this card, especially like early on when I'm already applying weak. I just don't think it has much of a place. It's obviously probably, I put it here actually. I think it's one of the worst common attacks that you'll find. Suppress on this tier list. Okay, it's here with this art. Suppress is 0 cost, 11 damage, apply 3 weak. Yeah, I mean it's just, I don't know. It's just extremely strong. Like I don't really know. It's 11 damage for 3 weak, and I believe upgraded I want to say it's 20 damage in 5 weak or something, or 17. Sorry. So it's very strong. You're not gonna get it very often, but basically it's just a complete upside card. It's insanely strong. It's just neutralized, but like literally 3 times better for 0 cost. Like it's an insane card. The fact that you're only gonna get it like every so often, I'm not gonna put it in S tier. I'll keep it here roughly. The thing is though, I think I would take this over like a Footwork, for example, right? So maybe I just gotta move Footwork down and keep these up here. Yeah, I think I'm okay with this. I'm sure if someone, I'm sure I could talk myself into putting Suppress at like the top of S tier, but you're just not finding it very often. And sometimes there's other, you have to compare it to other relics that you're taking, right? So is it worth taking Suppress over other relics? And a lot of the time the answer is yes, but there are times where that's no, and that's why I would kind of keep it out of the best category. But individually, if you were to look at all the cards without context, Suppress would probably be S tier. Survivor is obviously a card built into your kit. It's therefore gets a higher rating than the average card reward. I'm gonna put it definitely saves you a lot of damage early, and it also discards, which is pretty valuable. I'm gonna put it in great. I think next, I think I like Survivor more than Neutralize. I would put Survivor around here. I think it just does so much. It prevents you from taking so much damage. It also goes well with, for example, like a Reflex or a Tactician. It's another way to discard, which is valuable. Yeah, Survivor's great. Tactician is S tier. It's basically the only reliable way to generate energy on this character, which is really important. You can turn no energy into energy. When you upgrade it, it becomes double its value, so you gain 2 energy. I also want to put it at the I'll put it next to Acro as number 2. Basically, if you get an Acro, if you get discard and a few Tacticians, you win the run, because then you can start taking expensive cards and play them. I'll always take a Tactician when I see it, even if I don't have any, even if I don't have an Acro prepared. Well, not always, but if I'm at risk of dying, I won't take it. But like, I'll always take a speculative Tactician. I think it's just it has so much value in this game just because of how scarce energy is, and you're pretty much always going to get to play it if you have like prepares and acros and stuff. So it's just free energy really, and that is insanely valuable. The Hunt, deal 10 damage if fatal, gain an additional card reward, exhaust. Yeah, so that's just I don't really care to talk about the upgrade because it just deals a bit more damage, like 15 or something. But I mean, it's amazing, right? It's just you have a higher chance, you have double the chance pretty much of getting better cards. It does more it deals 10 damage for 1 energy, which is okay, but then 15 if you upgrade it. It's not really good for the damage per se. It's much better for the additional card reward. You're not going to be able to play it every single time, but like yeah, you're going to get probably some really good cards because you took the hunt. I don't think it's like a I think around here is an amazing as a safe spot. It's one of the best cards in the kit, especially if you get it early on. If you get it early on, you basically win the run, if assuming you can actually win the combats. It's very strong. Okay, tools of the trade. At the start of your turn, draw 1 card and discard 1 card. Yeah, I mean, it's extremely good. I want to put it in amazing. I think I would put it at the top of amazing almost because it's really good basically for the same reason Acro and Prepared are good. You draw and discard. It goes really well with Sly. It makes your deck more consistent. Upgraded, it costs nothing to play, so you want to upgrade it usually, and then it's just such a huge upside for such a small energy cost. I don't know how someone can make an argument for this being bad, given the state of the Sly synergies and stuff. Very strong. I'll I'm always happy to take this pretty much. Even in decks where I don't have much Sly, if I'm upgrading it, I'm still drawing one more card per turn and then discarding a card that I don't want. So it's just objectively good pretty much, especially upgraded. Tracking. Weak enemies take double damage from attacks. So there aren't ways to like mass apply weak, I find. There's Malaise, so like tracking and Malaise could be interesting. If I had Suppress, I would take a tracking. I believe the upgrade is just it costing one. I just find it awkward to take. I don't find it usually does anything. Its cost is really high. I think it would be fine if it costed one at base. I don't know, it just doesn't do a whole lot usually. The weak synergies in this deck, like I mean the status weak, they're just awkward to play usually. I think the circumstances for taking tracking, you would need to have like a weak engine. Like you always want weak to be applied pretty much. So then you're going to need to have things like Sucker Punch, and you're going to need to have things like, I don't know, Malaise and whatnot. Neutralize is a good consistent way to do it, but you're probably going to want to upgrade it, and you don't know late game, for example, if you're going to be able to play it early on. And for its cost, I just think it's bad, like straight up bad. I don't like tracking at all. I've never had a good run with it. I've tried to take it many times, and it's just not good. So even upgraded, I just don't really think it's good. It just always feels awkward to play. I don't know. I'm not. I'm definitely. Maybe I'm underrating this card. Maybe someone could change my mind, but I think it's pretty awful. Untouchable, Sly, and you gain 6 block now. It's no longer 9 block. Other than that, it's 2 energy for 6 blocks. So if you don't have synergies if you don't have like prepared and acrobatics, it's not great. But if you do, then like you basically just get blocked for free, right? So I think that in itself is really valuable. I want to put it around here. It's something that I take pretty much whenever I take untouchables pretty often once I already have an acro or prepared or two. And I'm even comfortable taking a speculative untouchable like somewhat early on. I think it's just functionally very strong. It provides a very useful service for usually 0 cost. So usually worth taking. Upgraded it costs 9. Up my sleeve, add 3 shifts to your hand, reduce this cost by 1. Up my sleeve is so good in like if you have like a really small deck and you're drawing it like once per turn maybe. It's